demonstration of his power. Only a king could offer his guests pineapple. Lending further meaning to the painting was the fact that the pineapple shown was an unusual fruit. It was, according to the painting's title, the first pineapple raised in England. It seems most likely that the pineapple in question had been imported as a young plant and had merely been ripened in England rather than being grown from scratch, something that only became possible later in the 1680s with the invention of the heated greenhouse. Even so, to have ripened a tropical fruit in England was quite a feat, and it signaled the expertise of England's horticulturists at a time when European nations were competing to discover, categorize, propagate, and exploit the wealth of plants from Asia and the Americas that had suddenly become available to them. In this new field of economic botany, the pursuit of scientific knowledge went hand in hand with furthering the national interest, and botanical gardens were being established around the world as colonial laboratories. The undisputed leaders in the field of economic botany in the late 17th century were the Dutch, who had pushed aside the Portuguese to become the dominant European power in the East at the time. The Dutch wanted to understand new plants for two main reasons: to find cures for the tropical diseases that were afflicting their sailors, merchants, and colonists, and to find new agricultural commodities beyond the known spices from which to make money. The Dutch set up botanical gardens at their colonial outposts at the Cape, at Malabar, Ceylon, and Java, and in Brazil, all of which exchanged specimens with similar establishments back home in Amsterdam and Leiden. These were much more ambitious than the botanical gardens established in Europe during the 16th century, starting in Italy in the 1540s, which had been chiefly medicinal in purpose. As England and France raced to emulate the Dutch and establish colonies and trading posts of their own, they also discovered an enthusiasm for economic botany. The history of the spice trade had shown that vast fortunes awaited anyone who could control the supply and trade of valuable foodstuffs. Who knew what other plants were waiting to be exploited? As if to emphasize the link between botanical and geopolitical mastery, some botanical gardens were even laid out to represent the world. Most were square and were divided into 4 parts, one each for Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. These areas were then further subdivided right down to individual beds for particular plants. The botanists who established them dreamed of being able to gather the whole world's plants in one place. As the catalogue of the Oxford Botanic Garden put it, "As all creatures were gathered into the ark, so you have the plants of this world in microcosm in our garden." But this ambitious goal proved to be hopelessly unrealistic, as the number of known plants mushroomed. The Inquiry into Plants by Theophrastus, an ancient Greek author, included only 500 plants. The Pinax Theatri Botanica, an epic work published by the Swiss botanist Gaspar Bowen in 1596, listed 6,000. And by the 1680s, John Ray's Historia Generalis